Rabbi Tendler, Alav Shalom, my Rebbe from Baltimore, once shared that his father, I believe his name was HaRav Yitzchak, yeah, correct. He shared the following Vel Torah. He was asked, when a person does something wrong, intentionally, they do an averah, an intentional averah. For example, they cook on a fire on Shabbat, on a barbecue, they light the coals, whatever, make a story. They must bring a korban chatat, an offering, a sin offering it's called in English.
But not barbecue,
we understand. We understand he did something wrong, he brings a sin offering. Why then does the person who does an averah, b'shogeg, very good, he's shogeg, he's an unintentional sinner. He didn't know it was wrong. He had no idea you weren't allowed to cook on Shabbat. That's what we were talking about. He didn't know. So why does he also bring a sin offering?
Because he should have known.
Oh, says better than he should have known. Says Rabbi Tendler, senior, he said for the sin of being an ignoramus, for a chet of being an am haaretz. It's a very important thing to know. We have been influenced l'ra'ah, in a bad way, from certain movements that have done a good thing. They have done a good thing, but we've been influenced in a bad way. What do I mean? Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, Alav Shalom, fought very hard against what many Hasidim were teaching in the Hasidic world, which was, the simple Jew, he doesn't know how to read, he doesn't know how to write, he doesn't know how to pray, he doesn't know how to learn, he doesn't know how to anything, he doesn't know. He's such a holy person, though. And there could be that there were actually Hasidim that believe this. I don't know, I'm not an expert enough in Hasidut, I wouldn't be surprised. Rabbi Nachman said, but it says in the Tanakh, Lo am ha'aretz chasid, that an ignoramus cannot be a righteous person. And when he heard stories, there was one time a man came to tell him, there's a special guy, he reads Tehillim, but he doesn't know how to read. He reads chapter Lamed Aleph, 31, he reads it Lo. Chapter Lamed Bet, he reads it Lev, he thinks the word for heart. He doesn't know, he just reads that, how simple of a Jew he is. Rabbi Nachman says there's no mitzvah. It's a problem that he's ignorant. Don't let your love of everyone allow you to also believe that people who are ignorant can be superior. They cannot. Not in our religion. And it's a problem. This has a different problem. This is why the Chassidim came. And the other side is, if we only treat people who are intelligent, people who are sophisticated as good people, and everyone else are bad, I'm not saying they're bad. What I'm trying to say is a fundamental principle of being Jewish is being learned. It's being educated, it's being sophisticated, it's being well-read, well-versed, and if we don't have this ability, then we're losing out from a certain place. I mean, it says, I don't know if I should say it. The Gemara says, Kol Talmid Chacham she'en bo dat. Any Torah scholar that doesn't have dat does not just know how to read, dat is an intellect, and to know what to do with the information that they have. I wouldn't call it common sense. It's not true. It's a learned sense. Nevela tova mimenu. It says that a dead carcass on the side of the road is greater than him. And so, of course, the rabbi said, what about a person who doesn't have that? They were born in a way that their mind is not sophisticated at that point. The Torah is not talking about them. We're not talking about a person that this is the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu made. It's a person who willfully chooses to be ignorant. The person who says, Judaism, who cares? I don't know. It's not important for me. I'd rather my kids get into a good college than know how to believe in Hashem. That personality is one who's raising a generation of ignorant Jews. That's a very dangerous place to be in. There's a chet, there's a sin in and of itself of being an am haaretz. That's why I always push. Less than I push people to keep Shabbat, to keep kosher, Baruch Hashem, in our community, I really don't have to push so hard on most of these things. We live in a community where we're all very much connected on certain things. But I'd rather push people to learn Torah, because the learning of Torah leads you to keeping Shabbat, to keeping kosher. But the other way around doesn't always work. I've seen many people who start keeping Shabbat, they start keeping kosher, but they never learn Torah. And so it's better for me to start Gadol Limud, Shem Vili Dei Maaseh. It's a greater learning which brings a person to action. And this foundation, this principle was not, I didn't get it from thin air, I got it from here. We can learn it together if you like. I don't remember where we ended off last year with HaRav Peretz. I'm just choosing a new topic inside of the book and we'll run with it. Amru Chazal, our rabbis tell us something very strange. Tana Devei Rabbi Yishmael, it was taught in the Beit Midrash of Rabbi Yishmael. I cannot tell you how much I love the name Yishmael. Yishmael, Hashem heard, hears my prayers. It's a beautiful name. what can we do though? We have a cousin named Yishmael. He didn't do a lot of good for us. And it seems like the Jewish people have just refrained from naming the name Yishmael. Why he got the name Yishmael, then I don't know. Maybe it was an exception. Were there a lot of Yishmaels and later it became a problem? I don't know the answer to this question. But every time I see his name, I'm jealous because I wish I could call my son Yishmael. But of course, then he would. I actually don't wish he would be called Yishmael because of everything he'd have to go through afterwards. Im ra'ita talmid chacham. It was taught in the house of Yishmael. Maybe Rabbi Yishmael himself taught it, or maybe this is what they taught in the Beit HaMikdash. If you see a talmid chacham she'avar avera balayla, which committed a avera at night, al teharher acharav bayom. You cannot still suspect him of being guilty of this avera in the morning. Shema asa tshuva, because maybe he did tshuva already. Shema asa kadatach. You think maybe he did tshuva? Ela vaday asa tshuva. For sure he did tshuva. Of course he did tshuva. And therefore, our rabbis teach us that if you see a talmid chacham do an avera at night, you cannot in the morning still think that he did the same avera, because it must be, we know for sure, vaday asa tshuva. For sure he did tshuva. It's a strange teaching. And it opens up a can of worms that we don't always like to discuss. What do you do with Talmidei Chachamim that do things that are wrong? I don't know that I could ever answer that question properly, but what I can say is there's a philosophy behind this. Let's start first off with the definition of a Talmid Chacham. The Gemara's definition of Talmid Chacham is very interesting. One who knows how to do shchita, one who knows how to do milah, one who knows how to be a sofer. Not just enough to be a theoretical Talmid Chacham, he also has to be a very practical Talmid Chacham. He has to know how to actually practice according to the law. But I believe the definition of Talmid Chacham is an abused definition today. Abused because not everybody that you think should be a Torah scholar is a Torah scholar. HaRav Peretz, when I asked him what's the difference between this generation and the last generations, he said this is the first generation where you can have a Talmid Chacham, a Torah scholar, she'en bo yirat shamayim, that has no fear of heaven. I mean, he can know a lot of Torah, he can do all the mitzvot, but he doesn't care what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. Because never in our life we had people that were Yirei Shamayim, maybe they didn't learn a lot, but never do we have a person who learned so much Torah, and in spite of that, they didn't care one thing about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you hear all these stories, this rabbi did this rabbi did that. It's not a surprise anymore. Rabbi is no longer synonymous with a person who has Yirat Shamayim. It's almost to the point where the communities don't even expect the rabbi to have Yirat Shamayim. Understand? I mean, we've come to the point where, yeah, I know that the rabbi... What do you mean you know? You're still there. What can I do? What can you do? What can you do? You can just say no. Some people don't, they don't have this understanding.
Because the whole generation deteriorated.
Very good. It could be that everybody fell. That's why the whole... You know,
you taught in one of the classes that every community gets the leader, the rabbi that he deserves.
Not always is it a good thing.
No.
You're correct. Sometimes it's a bad thing. For example, Rosh Yeshiva. There used to be Rosh Yeshiva who were... So when you think of Shaul HaMelech, when they chose him, he was Meshechmo Mamala. He was a head and shoulders above everybody else. Today, everybody can be a Rosh Yeshiva. I know how many people I meet that I'm a Rosh Yeshiva here, I'm a Rosh Yeshiva there. I was even a Rosh Yeshiva at a certain point. It's a joke. And what's a joke? The joke is that it used to be, you had to be a real... A Rosh Yeshiva was not just a rabbi, he was like a rabbi plus. You know, it was more. It was a... Today, it's not even a thing anymore. The Rosh Yeshiva, the generation of Rosh Yeshiva, are no longer around anymore. The people who knew Shas backwards and forwards, who knew Halachot, who knew Musar. Today, when you send your kid to Yeshiva, you send your kid to school, you have to check if the Rosh Yeshiva is even a person you want him to be influenced by. And when you send your child to Yeshiva, you send your child to a school, you have to know that whether you like it or not, it doesn't make a difference how good of a home you have. The people who are teaching in that place will influence your child whichever way they're going to go. And you have to make sure I'm comfortable enough with the people who are influencing my child. There's a prayer, I'm hoping to translate it into English this week, because I've been saying it a lot. Written by a rabbi, the Tilumi rabbi in Israel, it's called a prayer for parents who are sending their kids to first grade. And I think you could say it every year, not just in first grade. You could say it in preschool, you could say it in yeshiva, you could say it in college. And one of the sentences he says in the prayer is, I pray that the values that I give my child in my home should not contradict the values that he's getting from his teachers at school. Because what that creates is a world of... I had a friend, a very good friend of mine, still a good friend of mine. When he came to learn by HaRav Peretz, his father was a big community rabbi, like big, a famous rabbi. he could not handle the fact that his son was following the halachot of Rabbi Peretz instead of his halachot, that he was at home. And at a certain point, he told me, listen, so Dad, if you had a yeshiva, I would come study from you. But you don't have a yeshiva, and so you sent me to the next best place. It's not you, but it's the next best that we could have. So at least let me do the things that they do in the yeshiva. Maybe when I'm out of the yeshiva, I'll act differently, but it's like you sent someone to the army. Maybe you were once a general in the army, but now you're retired. There's another general in the army, and I have to listen to him. And it's a hard thing to do. I should never be tested. I'm sure that'll happen to me one day too. You think you have a child, they marry somebody. So all the values you had in your house, now they're married to somebody else. A whole new world of values. And you don't always have control over that. And it's a very scary place to be in. But this is the way of the world. We live in a world where you cannot really expect much from people who have a title, and therefore anything that we say Talmid Chacham, you have to know it's not talking about a rabbi stam, but a person who's really known as a Talmid Chacham. There are such people, many such people. It's just no longer synonymous with the title. So you see such a person, a real Talmid Chacham, they do an avera at night, you can't suspect them anymore in the day, because they certainly did tshuva. Kasher, על מה שחכמינו ז"ל פסקו. בהחלט, ודאי עשה תשובה. So I have a very big difficulty with this teaching. For sure they did tshuva, certainly they did tshuva. מנין לנו הוודאות הזאת? Where did you get the certainty that every Torah scholar does tshuva at night? על סמך מה? ואדרבה, הרי לפנינו עבר עבירה ודאי. It says more than that, who said? More than that, I saw him with my own two eyes doing avera. Not something you could excuse with maybe he did this, maybe he did that. Something I saw for sure was an avera. V'hu muchzak kach, and therefore this is something that is in a b'chinat vadai, certain. U'meidach, in the opposite, chazarato b'tshuva lo reinu klal shum davar v'shum raya o serech shalav nishaen lechshov shechazar b'tshuva. It says, so I didn't see anything opposing this action. I saw for sure that he did an avera. Did I see him do tshuva? Did I see him come out a different... I didn't see that process. How can something I didn't see, and I'm not even sure it took place, push off something for sure I saw that for sure took place? If I was a witness in court, did you see this man doing avera? Yes. But he's okay, he did tshuva. How do you know? I don't know. Did you see him? No. Did you hear him? No. Did he tell you? No. So on what grounds are you going against what you for sure saw?
Because you're saying that these Talmid Chachamim had your HaShamayim, so if you do, then you know that they would do tshuva. So in those times, that was true.
Agree with me that this is still, even in times when it's true, it's a very big blanket statement to me.
It's a very big.
I mean, Chazal were putting themselves in a risky spot. Not everybody who's Talmid Chacham I can be for sure. How do they know? ואם כן, האח נעזוב את הוודאי, את החזקה שאמר רבה, ולקבוע ודאי שעשה תשובה. How can I leave what is certain for something which is uncertain? ונראה. This is I need to explain by giving an introduction. כאשר נחקור ונדרוש מהו הגורם החזק העיקרי, המעורר ומביא לתשובה, what is the main thing that brings a person to do תשובה? נמצא, זוהי חוכמת התורה. It is the wisdom of the Torah. This continues what I mentioned earlier this week about miracle workers. The wisdom of Torah is what brings people back. ובלעדיה, and without it, אי אפשר להיות שב בתשובה אמיתית ושלמה. It is impossible, without the study of Torah, to come back into tshuva. Impossible. There's nothing else in the world that will get a person to do tshuva except for studying Torah. Says who? Let's go through the steps. Aleph, the first one. Let's say there was a guy who, he saw something in his life. He heard someone speak, he saw an incident, something changed him forever. I want to do tshuva, I want to get close to God, I want to become a more spiritual person. Let's say this is a person. The person who there was resting on him the spirit of purity. And he has a strong desire to do tshuva. If he did not study Torah, and he doesn't know what are the mitzvot in the Torah. Mitzvot aseh, mitzvot lo taseh. He doesn't know the positive, the negative, he doesn't know the commandments, the ways of the Torah. How can he do tshuva? He doesn't know he did something wrong. ולפי מחשבתו, זך וישר פועלו שאין תשובה מבלי שתקדם לידיעה והכרת החטא שחטא. וזה פשוט, it's very simple. Like Marlene and I were discussing before the class. How can a person do tshuva for something they didn't know was wrong? It was very good. Better than how can they do tshuva? How can they even know that they need to do tshuva if what they're doing they don't think is wrong? How many people in the world really want to be connected to Hashem? They don't even know the things they do are wrong. They don't know. I don't blame them. But then a person can't truly do tshuva unless they first educate themselves. What are the mitzvot of the Torah? When I know what the mitzvot of the Torah are, I'm able to do tshuva. Second, Amru Chazal, the rabbis tell us, Barati yetzer hara. I created the evil inclination. Barati lo Torah tavlim. The rabbis in Kedushin say, and I created against a remedy for the yetzer hara, and that is Torah. So what is there's a word for it? Potent. When someone gets venom, they have something else that counteracts it.
Oh, the antidote.
Antidote. What is the antidote for yetzer hara? Thank you. Is Torah. Torah. That's what counteracts the yetzer hara. And therefore says the Mislat Sharim, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Lutzato, Upashutu. It's very simple. She'im haboreh lo bara lamaka zo ela refuah zo. If Hashem tells us, I only created for the yetzer hara, for this disease, I only created one remedy. It's impossible to expect that somebody will be healed from this illness without this medication. Somebody will tell me, you know what brought people to do tshuva? Somebody screamed at them, somebody hit them on the head, somebody told them about their, whatever I mentioned earlier this week, all kinds of experiences people had. But it's not what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, we'll do tshuva. Somebody who thinks, I can be saved from what I do wrong without the Torah, he's a mistaken person. I don't want to read the rest. He'll see his mistake at the end. But if he studies Torah, when he sees the actions of the Torah, the mitzvot of the Torah, the lifestyle of the Torah, immediately when he starts to follow this lifestyle, he'll have a certain awakening inside of him, says the Ramchal, that will cause him to want to become a better person. It's almost like, we'll say, how do you get a person to keep Shabbat? You can't get a person. But what's the most? Tell him, just try it once. Come to my house. Let's do Shabbat together. Very rarely have I had someone come to my house for Friday night dinner and say, I would never do this again. Very rarely. Nobody says, I will never come back. That's such a bad experience. No. So what are you telling them?
But they still...
Oh, so it's not because we didn't learn Torah there. We started something by showing them, try it. You'll try it, you'll see that it's worth trying. The next step is harder. Pushing them enough to say, actually, let's give it a chance. The person who tries real Shabbat and a real experience in a real environment, it was special in Yerushalayim. You get a person to come to you for 25 hours. You go to the Kotel together, you're in the old city together, you're at someone's house for Shabbat together, you go to the yeshiva to pray together. It's not like here where you got just step 3 feet out of the door and you're already in weekday. Over there you're encompassed. You wanted to break Shabbat in the old city, you'd have to look very hard to break Shabbat. And so a person almost forgets that there's another world. They forget that there's something else happening right outside of these walls. It was very easy. You saw people one experience and that was all they needed. What was very difficult though was when those same people would end up back in New York or in Chicago or in LA, and then they realized, it's not as easy. Meaning it was almost like that Yerushalayim was my crutch. Yerushalayim was what made it so easy, but it's not so easy really. That takes preparation. Katuv Bigeret HaMusar, the third point, it says, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, he writes in his letter of Musar, Hanisgav v'hikar b'shimush refuot HaTorah לתחלואי היצר, תחלואי היצר, הוא ללמוד בעוז ועיון עמוק היטב דיני העבירה עצמה. It's an interesting thing. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter says, if you want to know how to keep Shabbat best, you want to fight the Yetzer Hara, study the laws of Shabbat in depth. Halakha im kol sifei, study all of the chapters, all of the commentaries, everything. כי זה הלימוד עושה קניין חזק בנפש, להיות העבירה מרוחק ממנו בטבע. It's almost like when you study about something, it's so hard for you to do it wrong again. Why? Why when you study about something, you won't do it again? Or at least there's a strong motivation not to do it again?
You know it's right. And you have a whole other consciousness. You know that this is right.
Okay, so you've opened up your perspective to a whole new world.
But when you don't do it, then you do something wrong.
Okay, so I'm also not doing something wrong.
The conflict, because before it was easy to ignore the conflict.
Now it's
Before you know it, there's no conflict. You just do what you do. You don't even know what you don't know.
No, people knew when they break Shabbat, but when
Maybe they
know-
didn't realize how bad it was, or they didn't realize how important it was, or they didn't.
It wasn't part of their life.
Oh, this is a different answer, though. This is something different. Let me read to you from Rav Dessler. Rav Dessler is one of Rabbi Peretz's rabbis. Rav Peretz studied by Rav Dessler in Ponovich. והסבר עיקר זה וטעמו, look in the book מכתב נדיהו, שהאדם העמל בדבר מסוים, when a person is they toil over one thing, כמידת עמלו מתקשר אליו. The more you invest in it, the more connected you are to it. ואהבתו לדבר זה מתגברת והולכת עם הגברת היגיעה, the top of the next page. The more you invest in it, the greater it is, so you'll find that your care for it becomes greater. דוגמה, for example, אנחנו רואים כאדם שעמל לנטוע עץ וטורח בגידולו. There's a person who plants a tree in their backyard. Barry brings us tangerines from his tree. Yeah, this tree that you planted, it's not something you. I don't know. Did you plant it?
In the gardener.
Okay, no, but it's yours, meaning you
Yeah,
water
yeah,
it, you
yeah,
take
yeah.
care of it. Okay, you didn't buy the house with it.
No.
Correct. So this, when I plant it in the ground and I work hard, I cut the branches, I pay for the gardener, I water it. Nikshar elav, you find yourself have a connection to this tree. Ad shematchil le'ehov oto, you could almost say that I love this tree. I mean, I love it. If someone would cut it down, I'd become very hurt by it. Like, what do you mean? It's not just another tree I bought at Home Depot. It's something I worked on.
Yeah, it did happen to us.
It didn't happen with your orange tree.
The lemon.
The lemon, that we cut the branches. So
Yeah.
this happens. And what do you feel? It's like, what do you care? It's just a lemon tree. It's not just a lemon tree. Frankly, it's not just a lemon tree. I spent time of my life invested in this tree. רואה בעץ חלק מעצמו. He sees inside of the tree like a little bit of myself. מהאני שלו, from a little bit of me. Meaning, you want to see what I did with my life? Look, this is my tree, those are my books, this is my chair that I built, this is my house that I bought, this is part of me. ולכן מקושר אליו, and he's connected to it, משום כך מרבהו לטפחו ליפותו. He works very hard to make it more beautiful, and to make it more pretty. כדי שהעץ שלו ייראה נאה, for his tree to look so beautiful. יסוד זה הורונו חז"ל, our rabbis already told us in Bava Metzia, אדם רוצה בקו שלו מתשעה קבין של חברו. They say that this is a Yiddish saying, but it's not really a Yiddish saying. They say that if 10 people were to sit around a table, and everybody would put their suffering on the table, all their tzavot, everybody would choose theirs. I don't want yours. Yeah. This works also in a positive way. If everybody were to put on the table, let's say we were all in an art class together, and we all painted a painting, or we built chairs in a wood crafting class, and we put all our chairs in the middle of the room and said, do you want to take everyone else's chairs, or do you want just yours? I'll take just mine. You can keep your chair. When you really, something is yours, you'll prefer less of yours than more of someone else's. It's precious to you because you worked hard for it. Says the he tells us that if this is true about a tree, about something physical, how much more so on a spiritual character trait? ככל שעמל האדם יותר לזכות במעלה רוחנית, כך הוא דבק בה, עד שנהפכת להיות קניין בנפשו. The more a person works on something that they accomplished on a spiritual level, that's how precious it will be for them. I recently got in a conversation with one of my wife's family members, and I told him, he said, who says that the way you understand this is correct? I said, listen, I spent over 5 years in Smicha studying this page. I'm upset at this page, how much I had to study it. Of course, I'm a rabbi. He said, I'm also a rabbi. I said, you're a rabbi, you're not a rabbi. He got smicha also. How long did it take him? A few months. He got a certificate somewhere. That's why he treats smicha like that, and I care about smicha more. Maybe I'm wrong, but I spent 5 years of my life doing it. If I would have got that kind of smicha too, maybe I wouldn't care about it. It's kind of like when a person has a college degree. They work hard, they go for a master's, for a PhD. They find that there's some school that gives out diplomas, like 1 year bachelor's, 1 year master's, half a year PhD. What? I had to go through the whole system to break one, and you just, I don't know, you got some credits in Israel, and then you put it together. How does it make you feel? It makes you feel very upset. It is a problem. And this is true on a spiritual level as well. You're connected very much to the things you work hard about. So if a person studies Torah, the chances of them violating the things they spend so much time trying to learn and comprehend becomes much slimmer. It doesn't have to be the laws of Shabbat necessarily. I found in our Monday morning class that having conversations about Ben Adam L'Chavero, between man and their fellow, it's easier to talk about that because people connect to this. Everyone likes to become a better person. Everyone wants to talk about relationships. And I found that those mitzvot very often drag a person to start keeping more Torah and mitzvot in general, to become more observant, to care more about Hashem. The other way around, I teach the laws of tefillin to somebody. I'm not convinced they're going to become a better person. I'm not even convinced they're going to keep kosher. Laws of tefillin, maybe they'll put in tefillin, maybe. 4. Hinegeder tshuva, the definition of tshuva, sheha'ish hayareh Hashem, that the person who fears Hashem, meharher u'mechashev, he's always constantly thinking and pondering. Shokel b'da'atot ma'asav, is always weighing his actions in his mind. Memashmesh u'mefashfesh bahem u'vodkam lirot ha'im hem tovim olam. Pashpesh, that's probably pashpesh. If a person is always constantly, I don't know how you translate memashmesh.
Mefashpesh.
Mefashpesh with a fe? Okay. If a person is constantly...
לא ממשמש. The mefashpesh, it's to look.
Not to look.
We say to look for. Like...
It's like to search in yourself. You'd really work hard to search inside.
מפשפש במעשיו.
Yeah. To see if the things I'm doing are good or not. וחישוב זה ובדיקה זו. צריך להיות תמיד, בכל יום ויום, נראה את השם באמת. Every day a person has to do this. והנה נטייה זו ודרך זו נקנית ומצויה בייחוד אצל תלמידי חכמים. And this is the logic that our rabbis employed in the Gemara before. Torah scholars specifically are always working hard to improve themselves. Why? משום שכך הוא שיטת הלימוד ועיון התלמודי. The way of studying Torah is very different than the way of studying math or studying psychology or studying science. להקשות ולתרץ. We're always asking questions and answering them. להביא ראיה, we're bringing proofs, ודחותה, to disprove the proofs. Masal matan, back and forth, engaging conversation, birur achar birur, analyzing and then analyzing even more. Unlike other things where you just study something, you accept information, and that's what you pass on forward. In Torah, we don't accept anything. We study, we fight, we argue, we ask, and therefore our lives also become that way. Everything that we do, I don't have to be right always. I can also be wrong. Why? If Rabbi Akiva was wrong, or Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was wrong, why can't I also be wrong? Other people lack this character trait to always ask, to always dig more. Somebody who learned Torah and actually internalized it. Ishtalim means he became complete with it. Niknet lo v'naset lo keteva. It becomes part of his nature. Netiya zo v'derech zo. This leaning, this style, this attitude. Nish'ol, lidrosh, lachkor, et kol davar. Everything that he hears, he wants to know more. He wants to make sure it's really true. On social media, I see people posting all of that crazy things. Harvard put out that if you eat 10 pounds of sugar, all the diseases in your body will go away. But you should see. How do you know that it's true? It's not true. But how do you know that people believe it? Because 100 other people on the Facebook are posting it also. But it's absurd. So somebody put up a wonderful quote that I saw online. And it said, it's a quote from Abraham Lincoln. And it says, you should never believe quotes you see on the internet. But someone who doesn't care, that they always believe, so I always, there's all kinds of websites, Snopes, Hoaxlayer, you just put in something and they've researched already what's true, what's not true. Hashem Yishmo, all the things that people believe just because they saw it once somewhere. Most of them are not even true.
It's very easy to do that.
And there's a guy who floats around, he's the son of Hamas, became a Christian, you're probably familiar with his story. Everyone loves him, he's so pro-Israel. That's because in English he's so pro-Israel. You should hear the things he says in Arabic.
What is in Arabic?
You should Google it online. He's not as pro-Israel as you think he is. He's just not so Hamas either. But you have to be very careful when you hear people. Don't get fooled always by the way a person presents themselves to you. Dig behind them. Make sure that everything you hear from them is also something you want to know. ולפיכך אם קרב ונכשל לתלמיד חכם ועבר עבירה, חזקה גדולה היא ודאות גמורה שעוד באותו יום יהרהר ויחשוב על מה שעשה. And it's very important to know that there are rabbis, our תלמידי חכמים, they try very hard at night. When they do something, to always do a חשבון הנפש, to calculate the things they did wrong. וישקול אותו בשיקול הדעת והתבונה כדרכו ורגילתו תמיד. לשקול ולבדוק כל דבר, כך ינהג בזה. So too, the thing you saw him do wrong, he'll also take it in. Maybe he did something wrong. והרהורי תשובה יעלו בו ויראוהו ויתאונן על חטאו ויתחרט ויחזור בתשובה שלמה. לפיכך אל תהרהר אחריו כוונה יעשה תשובה. So you're talking about a person who's constantly working on themselves. How often does a person do something to you on Shabbat? Then you see them on Shabbat later, they come over and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to tell you what I told you last week. that kind of person, that's what we're talking about. It's a person who, there's some people that I've never in my life heard them say the words, I'm sorry. They always do things wrong, and always they have someone else to blame for it. You know why? It was because of that. It was because of the wall. It was because of the chair. It was because I didn't sleep last night. No, there are people who never take responsibility for their actions.
Oh, yeah.
Those people, you don't have to assume maybe they did tshuva at night. But these are people who are constantly asking forgiveness. Mechila, maybe I said something that was incorrect to you. That kind of person, trust that at night they did tshuva. And when you think about these things, Rava used to say in his Kehillat Chokhmah, the point, the purpose of all wisdom, tshuva ma'asim tovim, to do tshuva and to do good actions. Klomar, meaning shatachlit, the point, the purpose, la meviah chokhmah, that wisdom is supposed to bring you to, hiya tshuva, is to do tshuva, mean to become a better person. V'chamur v'chen yuvan hetev ma shekatav b'sefer Shaar Tshuva. Shaar Tshuva of Rabbi Yonatan Halevy. This is the one who wrote against the Rambam, and then did tshuva by writing this book. And he wandered in his life. I don't know if I should translate these things. He says they're ignoramuses they're like always asleep. Their life is, they don't think about anything they do. They don't consider things in their heart. They have no wisdom, they have no knowledge, no intellect. There are people, it's the opposite of Talmid Chacham. I don't know why it has to be added in here. The opposite of Talmid Chacham are the people who, like I mentioned, they're always right, they don't think too much about things they do. These people are very dangerous. They themselves don't know the things they do wrong. They don't care if they do things wrong. They say whatever they want, they speak whatever they want. I was at SeaWorld, a while ago, we got passes to SeaWorld in the summer. And I was sitting, and there was these two dads. Someone should create a license to be a parent. I know it sounds wrong, but you have to get a license to drive a car. Not everybody should have children. I'm sorry that I say such a thing. These two guys, if they knew how to read the sign that said SeaWorld on it, I would be surprised. They're sitting there, drinking these beers. I've never seen in my life a beer this big. Drinking and burping, and then cursing. Every word, every curse word you heard in your life. Cursing at the kids, cursing at the wife, cursing. It's in a family place. But these people, if you would go and tell them, look at yourself, look how they'd get mad at you. What do you mean? Me? They would never understand for the life of them that they're doing something wrong. And it might not even be their fault. That's why we're not so harsh on them. Because these are people who are so beyond, they're so beyond tshuva. Not, God forbid, they can't do tshuva. But to do tshuva, you have to have this awareness. It's like when a drug addict, the first step of his rehabilitation is to be aware that I have a problem. Right. But if you're not willing to admit that you have a problem, so how can I even begin to help you? This is the problem. This is the point. This is the tshuva. When we talk about a person who can do tshuva, who is able to do tshuva, is one who constantly trains themselves. I don't always have to be right. It could be the way I did yesterday, even if it was in public, even if it was in front of a lot of people. I'm still going to be able to say I'm sorry. I was in a yeshiva once where the Rosh Yeshiva called out a student. I believe the Rosh Yeshiva was correct. He called out a student though in public. Maybe he shouldn't have done it in public. And the next day, he said, when you do an Avarah, you have to do tshuva in the same fashion. So if you called out somebody in public, you can't ask them forgiveness in private. You have to fix it with a whole... He made every person in the yeshiva has to come to the yeshiva. Everybody. It doesn't make them sat down in the chair. I want to ask from this person forgiveness in front of everyone. That I'm sorry, I did something wrong yesterday. I'm asking not in private in my office. Meaning, what is he telling? He taught his students, I don't have, wasn't out of that, another Oshiva. I don't have an ego more than I have a desire to be a good person. And my desire to be a good person trumps this image that I'm creating. I'm so smart, I always do things right. But in fact, his giving up on his ego is what made people respect him even more. And that's the place we're trying to reach on Tshuva, is by learning Torah. You cannot become better without learning. You can't be more educated. You can't know what is right and what is wrong if you don't study about what is right and what is wrong. That should also say, so what kind of Torah should I study? People love to study things that don't make them change. How many people today like to study the 10 sfirot and the lights of the world? And why do they study these things? Because I don't have to be nice to somebody tomorrow just because there are 10 worlds. Well, it's amazing. Why are so many people studying these things? Because it's not mechayev. It doesn't demand from me anything. Why are people studying? They study a lot of Gemara. What kind of Gemara do they study? The intellectual things. You know, if one guy had a cow and money, who pays who? Why don't you study the parts of the Gemara that talk about being a good person, talk about being upright, being honest, you see people, they study Torah, they learn parasha at night. and the next day they're swindling people in their store. Because they're trying to study things on purpose that will never make them change. Those people, it's also the kind of Torah you study is important. To make sure when you study Torah, when you study Gemara, when you study Halakha, when you study Musar, if you study Musar, you must. There must be one book of Musar that a person reads all the time. Mesilat Yesharim, it's like Hashem's gift to mankind. But in this, to always study, to become a better person. B'ezrat Hashem, we're studying in order to become better people, better.